Welcome, everybody, to Dave's Corner Garage. We welcome you on Facebook Live, and you can go to facebook.com/Dave's Corner Garage, and you will see us. We have a great one-hour show for you with a great panel of automotive experts, and we're going to turn it over to Dave Redinger, who hosts the show, and he'll introduce everybody. We invite you down for any questions, no matter where you are at the MTCC, and we welcome any texts that you want to send in. Any questions that you have right now?
Hello!
There you go. Dave's got his oldest audience right now. Here's Dave Redinger. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. It's Dave's Corner Garage. We've actually been on the air on AM 740 19 years. So that's a long time for any radio show to be on the air. What we do is actually bring the experts down that are in the know. We'll give you honest answers to the questions you may have. So if you've got a question about buying a car, having a classic car that needs insurance, buying a newspaper from Norris over there. Lease Busters, is Andy's here from Lease Busters. If you want to get out of the lease, Andy will explain that to you. Trevor is here from Crown, who's one of our original sponsors, and I really got to thank you out loud. 19 years we've been together. We sold a lot of undercoating. And one of our newest sponsors is Car Generator. Jonathan is here from Car Generator's actual inventor. Jonathan was on Dragon's Den. If you notice his shirt where it says Dragon's Den, he actually got 2 dragons to help him with his business. So we'll talk about Car Generator. Okay, OMVIC. OMVIC is the Ontario Motor Vehicle Industry Council. And you can say that all in one word. The idea was back in the 70s, nobody regulated the used car industry. And so they brought out the Used Car Dealers Act. And that has morphed into OMVIC, which we have today. And Scott's here to talk about the dangers of buying a vehicle. And one of the things is all-in pricing. This is what you're pushing right now, is that the price that's advertised is...
So a price, when a dealer places an ad with a price in it, that price must include all fees and charges the dealer intends to collect from a consumer. The only thing that can be excluded is HST and licensing. And when I say licensing, I refer to the actual cost of licensing to put plates on the car, transfer ownership, things like that. But absolutely, so OMVIC, as you said, quite a mouthful when you read it all out. So we're better known as Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. And we've been here since 1997. We've enforced 2 different drafts of the legislation. And our latest one was put into force in 2010. And that's where all-in price advertising came in. And actually, OMVIC last year launched a brand new campaign called Take a Picture. And we encourage consumers to go to the dealership's website, look in the newspaper, and take a picture of the dealer's ad and bring it with them to their dealer to ensure that they're getting the all-in advertised price.
Now, I know that you have mystery shoppers, and I know that you have regulations. Are you getting 100% the dealers complying? I guess that's the word I'm looking for. 100% complying, or not?
No, that's a good question, Dave. In fact, we have conducted mystery shopping, and the results are quite unfortunate. Over 50% of dealers, based on our mystery shop results, are charging above the advertised price. The highest we saw was in GTA at about $13,000. And that goes back to my point a moment ago where we really want to empower consumers, give consumers a tool to put them in the driving seat and get that all-in price they deserve. We do have a lot of enforcement activity at OMVIC. Last year, we issued 30 notices of discipline, which will cover things like all-in price advertising.
Right.
But especially now, we really want to empower the consumer to be able to get that all-in price.
So if they're advertising price, that they can put anything in that price that they want, as long as that's the one I'm offering to you.
Absolutely. So we actually encourage dealers. So when you go into a dealership, you'll be presented with a contract, a bill of sale, depending on the language they use. And we encourage dealers to actually list every single fee that's built into that advertised price. Administration fee, freight and PDI, even detailing fees. So the consumer is aware so they can know how the dealer actually came up with that final price. But that bottom line absolutely cannot exceed that advertised price. It cannot exceed it.
So I walk in, here's my $19,000, and I want to drive out with that car plus HST and license fees. That's it.
Exactly. So if you see that car advertised to $19,000, you can go into that dealership and expect to pay $19,000 plus HST and licensing.
Okay, good. And OMVIC is around, omvic.ca now?
Yes, so we're OMVIC.ca, very easy to find us. And actually, we're exhibiting here at the auto show this year, like we have many years. We're down in level 800 South. We have a fabulous exhibit here. I'm sure we'll talk more about the exhibit shortly, but come on by. You can put your feet up. It's a fabulous spot.
Right.
Alrighty, Scott from OMVIC. We talk about curbsiders. It's always been a plague in our industry. I think 25% of the ads that are out there are from curbsiders, which are unlicensed dealers. How do you handle that?
We did data mining on Kijiji some years back, and we found that in Ontario, 25% of the ads you'll see on there are placed by a curbsider. And a curbsider is an illegal, unlicensed dealers, and they're in the business of ripping consumers off. They pose as private sellers, go onto Kijiji, and they'll sell vehicles and they'll price them below market value because they're often rebuilt wrecks. They'll go to salvage auctions, fix up the cars for nothing, and then sell them at exorbitant profits. These vehicles are obviously very dangerous vehicles to be driving, and the consumers are completely unsuspecting. It's very unfortunate. So OMVIC has very large efforts to combat curbsiding. In fact, it's one of the biggest things we do at OMVIC. Last year alone, we laid over 340 charges for curbsiding. Recently, in fact, in January, there was a pair of Markham area curbsiders. They were purchasing vehicles and rolling the odometers back. In some cases, 300 to 400,000 kilometers. Collectively, there was over 22 charges laid for curbsiding. It's quite the feat. Of course, there's still alleged. It hasn't been tested in the court yet, but it's a very, very busy time for us at OMVIC, constantly combating curbsiders.
Now, one of the things to protect themselves, consumers should be buying from registered dealers, obviously. And if they do buy from a registered dealer, they have what's basically a guarantee from OMVIC. If something goes wrong, that you guys will step up.
Well, consumers could obviously have the choice whether they want to buy privately or from a registered dealer. When a consumer does buy from an OMVIC registered dealer, they have access to all-in price advertising, and most importantly, OMVIC's compensation fund.
Yes.
So if something does go wrong with a dealer, in particular in one circumstance, when dealers, let's say they fail to discharge a lien and they close down their business. One instance, OMVIC actually issued an immediate suspension. It was to a dealer up in Sault Ste. Marie, and those customers were able to go to the compensation fund and get that money back for the unpaid liens as a result of the dealer's actions. If you buy privately, or especially if you buy from a curbsider, you unfortunately do not have access to that protection.
No, you basically have to go to court if you can find the guy who you met at McDonald's to buy the car.
And that's just it, Dave. Yes, you'd have to go to court, and it's a very expensive and lengthy process at the end of the day, whereas with OMVIC, it's the safer way to buy. We're with an OMVIC registered dealer, sorry.
Right? To become a dealer, it's not a simple process, is it? You basically have to have a criminal record check. You have to have a certain amount of money available. Tell us about that.
So actually, it's not the most difficult process. OMVIC has to take its due diligence to ensure that people selling in the industry will operate with something called honesty and integrity. It's actually in our legislation. The Motor Vehicle Dealers Act, Section 6, requires that dealers and salespeople operate in this manner. And the first step to test honesty and integrity is the application process. So for a dealer, of course, for example, you'll be required to submit to a criminal background check. Same with a salesperson. Someone's history can really indicate how they may operate in the future. And with financial records, there's actually, the legislation doesn't have any particular amount one must have in their bank account, but we will take a look at finances to ensure that they're fiscally viable and to ultimately
Where
protect consumers.
Where did the money come from? How much is available? Right?
Absolutely. We will always check where the money came from, potential interested persons in the dealership. We need to dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's before we let someone enter in the industry for sales.
Norris, you had a question?
No, but I'm fascinated with the discussion.
Yeah.
And it's as I say, it's fascinating. As far as curbsiders, though, I do know people who buy and sell cars as a hobby, who don't do it as a curbsider sort of thing. They do, though, to make a little extra money. How do you determine who the rip-off artists are?
Yes.
Than somebody who is, as I say, just doing some flipping every now and again to supplement their income?
No, that is a fabulous question. So the threshold is, often people think, oh, I can sell maybe 4 cars a year, for example, before it's considered curbsiding. In fact, that's not the case. It's when you're trading in motor vehicles, when you want to make a business out of buying and selling cars, even if it's just a hobby, 3 or 4 cars a year, and you're doing it to make money, side income, you must become registered with OMVIC because you are selling to the public and it is your business. If you're selling your own personal vehicle, however, that's totally legal. You are welcome to sell your car and OMVIC won't come knocking. It's until you start trading in them.
What if I buy and sell my own car 4 or 5 times a year, though?
Not the first time I've heard that, Norris.
Actually, they trace phone numbers. That's what they do.
sure
They
they
follow the phone numbers.
The only reason I asked this
You're
is
turning red, by the way.
this is it's not me.
Okay.
But it's I have a cousin in Detroit, and every time I go to visit him, he's got a great long driveway, and he's got pickup trucks in there, and he's got sedans in there, he's got SUVs in there. I say, what are these? He says, I'm just doing a little business.
Sounds like a curbsider if we were in Ontario to me. Literally right on the curb of his driveway.
Okay.
We have a question here for Scott from OMVIC. We keep hearing on the radio and reading that there is a cooling off period once you buy a car. What does that mean?
I'm very glad that question was asked actually, because
They have a smart audience sometimes.
I was just,
yeah?
that's
Yeah, they're
very
good.
impressive. In vehicle sales in Ontario, so when you go to a dealership, you buy in a car and you sign that contract, this sale is final. There is no cooling off period. So cooling off period is basically a time where you can think about your purchase and then potentially return it or undo a contract. With vehicle sales, that does not exist in Ontario. As soon as you sign that dotted line, you have just entered into a legally binding contract. So that's why you have to be absolutely certain that you want to purchase a vehicle before you sign the contract, because you won't have the opportunity to change your mind
So if
after.
you take a picture of the signed agreement and then something goes wrong with the car, say in a week later, you go back and that person's no longer there, then what can somebody do?
So if you did sign a contract and you did have an issue with the vehicle that you purchased, if it was from an OMVIC registered dealer,
Right.
you can call OMVIC 1-800-943-6002
That
and
number
get in
again
touch.
is?
1-800-943-6002.
Says-
So if you run into an issue, you're welcome to contact our complaints and inquiries team.
Okay.
They're a very useful team, and they can actually negotiate with the dealer on your behalf to get a resolution. Now, there is one thing I want to note. In Ontario, the only person who can force someone to return money or force someone to do something is a judge. But to give you an idea, our complaint handlers alone returned $960,000 strictly through mediation with dealers. So consumers calling in with issue maybe about needed repairs to the vehicle, an issue with a contract, $960,000 just through negotiation.
You know, they should add something to that, where a guy goes and works at a dealership number 1 and then goes to dealership number 2 and tries to get a better price. He's actually bought 2 cars, and dealership number 1 has no obligation to give him back any deposit.
Absolutely. So when in that circumstance, and of course we encourage consumers to never sign 2 contracts because you've just promised to purchase 2 vehicles there, but dealers have a few options when a consumer does want to back out of a deal after they've signed a contract. Of course, they can cancel it and refund the deposit as a gesture of goodwill. Their other option is to claim damages. So let's say I purchased a vehicle from you, Dave. You're a registered dealer, and I changed my mind after the fact. But as a part of that contract, I asked you to tint the windows for me, and I left a $1,000 deposit. You got those windows tinted. It cost you $300, and I've changed my mind. You're allowed to claim those damages from my $1,000 deposit and then refund the rest. Another example of what we call a liquidated damage is getting another safety for a vehicle. That's common in used cars.
Right.
Yep. So, of course, though, if OMVIC was involved, we would ask the dealer for proof of the damages because they have to be reasonable. You can't simply claim that entire deposit. It's got to be reasonable.
You know, and one point we should talk about is be specific on where you're going to get your credit, because if you've got a dealer shopping your credit through 4 or 5 different banks, you actually affect your credit rating.
Yes, that's entirely possible. So sometimes what can happen is a dealer may send your credit application to multiple different lenders
That's right,
to try to
yeah.
obtain credit. And when that credit application is read over and over and submitted over and over again, it looks like you're constantly shopping for new credit. And that actually could decrease your credit rating going forward.
I heard five points for every time there was an application.
Depends on what credit agency's reviewing your credit for you, but absolutely it could be 5 points. It's You got to be careful. You got to know where your credit app is going.
Yeah.
OMVIC.ca, and also please come visit us at the booth here at the Auto Show.
Where are you located?
Level 800 in the South Building, right in the very bottom. Take every escalator you possibly can until you're in the basement. And come sit at what we call the OMVIC Academy, a comfortable area where you can learn your rights about all-in price advertising and the important manufacturer exemption, manufacturer ads, so the OEMs, the people who build the cars, don't have to advertise all-in prices, only dealers. But come learn about curbsiders, the difference between buying from a dealer and privately, and even extended term loans and negative equity, which was briefly
I
touched
love
on.
that. Good.